We are City of Five Nations podcast. I'm Daniel Shaughnessy, and on this rainy day, it's Memorial Day, and we have a special guest to my heart, and that'll come out later in why it's so special. But we also have a couple of diehards with us from the City of Five Nations Police Department. And I'm going to bring in Major Taylor, as this week we're talking to police officers, ones we love to get to know and help others be able to realize a dream, perhaps, in fulfilling of a dream of becoming a police officer. Rod, what's the process like to become a police officer in the City of Five Nations?
Well, the first thing is to get that application turned into us so we can start on the process. It's a short, about an 8-page app, the initial application is. And once you get that turned in, we have a cycle coming up in June where we'll start processing this next group. And then the process is that initial testing, which is the obstacle course, and it's just a basic physical fitness standard that is similar to what Oklahoma City is testing. And they also do a written test. And from there, there's a little bit of a waiting period until the next testing, which is the psychological testing and also the polygraph. So there are a number of different steps. It may take a couple of months to process the applicants. And that's what makes it so different in just the normal businesses. Police officers have to go through several months before the process is concluded. So it's a little bit slower.
Well, and you mentioned this being Memorial Day, this is the last week of May. Applications can be picked up and turned in right now?
Yeah, we'll take them today.
Very good. And when will be the deadline for the processing if they want to get in on this June start date?
We'll take them the day of. If they show up for the testing with the application in hand, we'll let them test.
And you have not set that date yet, but we will know when it will be. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's around June 10th.
Okay, so early part of June. That's wonderful. Rod, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to call up Officer Jay Kheen. In fact, Jay, are you a corporal now?
Yeah, corporal.
Corporal Jay Kheen. So on the intro, I said this is a special day for me because, Corporal, you were one that I was in the interview process with. Do you remember that? I was on, I call it like the civic board that does some of the interviewing and the questions.
Yes, sir. I remember we had Major Taylor was on that board, and Bryson Moore, and Kelly Kentz, and then you and one other civilian, if I remember right.
I think it was Louis Maltos.
I think that's right, actually.
Yeah, I learned a lot in that process, and I talk frequently with Rod about that. It was a great experience for me. What about for you as a recruit coming into a room like that? What was it like for you as a recruit?
That day was pretty nerve-wracking. There was I think 19 people that were being interviewed that day total, like 10 in the morning and 9 in the evening. So obviously it was a big process with a lot of applicants and everything. So a little bit nerve-wracking, but like anything, once you get in and start getting after it a little bit, it gets a little easier. So
Jay, were you the only one of those 19 to come through, or did you have a few classmates come through at that same time?
No, we've actually got Sergeant Kevin Huey and Sergeant Andrew Terry. Were both hired on with me out of that application process, and still here. And they're both supervisors on midnight shift patrol, and we're still going strong.
You know, I know Huey pretty well. I really like him. Who was the other one?
Andrew Terry.
I have to meet Andrew. Maybe he'll be on with us. What are some insights I need to know about Terry?
Probably one of the best individuals I've ever met. He's a sniper on our SWAT team. I mean, just solid guy, solid cop.
I love that, man. I love that. Now, talking about solid, dispatch always has to be solid with you guys. So I'm going to let you go for a second, Corporal. I'll bring you back. But I want to bring up Chrissy Brown. Chrissy is director of the dispatch. And Chrissy, you get along pretty well with the police officers in your department, don't you?
I like to pretend I do, but yes, I like them. I know that we have disagreements, but we get along very well.
And what about in your department? Why is it so important that dispatch and the officers get along?
We are a lifeline. There are opportunities, or there are not always an opportunities to hear what they have to say more than once. So we're expected to get that the first time. So we need to maintain a good relationship. In fact, I think we're probably the only ones in the entire department that recognize a face, a voice, a badge number, and a name, where everybody else is, they may know the face and a name, but we know the voice that goes with that person on the other end of the radio.
Well, and of course, on the other end of the radio means that you are on one end of the radio with every call, and you are also on the end of a phone call. So you're kind of in the middle. You're that central link being in dispatch. And Chrissy, I understand that you are looking for qualified individuals to join your team as well.
Yes, we are. We are hiring. I will tell everybody that it's got the best aspects of being law enforcement, because you get that exciting adrenaline rush when big things are happening. You get to be part of the team, but you don't have to work in the heat and you don't have to work in the cold or snow. So you get a little bit of everything, but you're at least not exposed to the elements.
You're not too far away from the refrigerator.
That too, yes.
Well, let's bring the other guys back on as we bring on Rod and Jay again. And Rod, how does that make you feel? I mean, dispatch has it made.
They do. Sometimes we're jealous. Yeah. they have it pretty good down there. And Chrissy does an awesome job with dispatch. And I think they've even got national accolades and state accolades. What are some of those things you're involved with, Chrissy, and as well as the other dispatchers?
This year I serve as our APCO chapter, the Oklahoma APCO chapter president, and primarily that is the promotion of training and standards set across the state and making sure that we're up to date with our technology. And I've also got another dispatcher that's one of the area vice presidents for NENA, which is the National Emergency Number Association. So she does well to keep in touch with other organizations within her area to see what their needs are. We share ideas. It's very similar to that of patrol, where we're trying to maintain what we have, but build on it and get better every day.
But you guys have won some awards, haven't you? Been recognized both nationally and through the state?
Yes, I've had dispatchers win Telecommunicator of the Quarter this past year, which is a state recognized award. We've got a dispatcher who was recently recognized for helping save a man's life by CPR instructions. She'll be in an international magazine for her interview in the next month or so. And then we have other dispatchers who have been recognized for their actions taken during high priority calls. So they're well known. I'm proud of them.
That's cool.
Jay, that sounds like we need to have like a dispatcher series, don't we? Jay, how important is it to you as an officer on the street to have such quality dispatchers backing you up?
Oh, it's everything. A lot of times, we're relying on our backup to get there. And sometimes the only way they're going to get there is if dispatch can figure out where we're at, get us the information we need, make sure we do everything safely. So we couldn't do our job without them, period. There's no other ifs, ands, or buts about it. So they're awesome.
Well, and dispatch always has stories about the officers, and we're about to unload one on you, I think. Chrissy, what do you got for us today with Jay Kheen?
Jay has been in a little bit of all areas within the department. So he's got a wide variety of experience in different divisions. One of the most memorable things that I've had to experience with Jay, he worked undercover for a little bit, and I guess I'm allowed to say that he worked undercover, but he grew his facial hair out very long. His hair was long. We had a fundraiser for the fire department and the police department. He was on one of the golf teams, and I don't know about golf, so I guess they were teams. He was on one of them. I had gone around in a golf cart with one of the board members to take pictures for our slideshow at the end of the year. And we get to Jay's team, and I'm taking pictures of him, talking to everybody on his team. And she leans over to me, and she's like, "Who's that squirrely looking guy? I can't believe that they let him play with them." I'm like, that's actually the officer. But now when I see him, all I can think of is the squirrely looking guy. But he fit the part. He did well. He fit the part.
Well, we do have the privilege, Jay, to know that you have done a lot in your short time on the force. Talk a little bit about the different areas in which you have served, and perhaps give us a story or two of some of the most adrenaline rushed situations that you've run into.
Oh man. Yeah, so I've worked midnight shift patrol for several years. When I first started out, kind of learned how to do everything there. And then I spent some time on the community-oriented policing team. I guess you'd call it the shaking hands, kissing babies team. I did 6 years at the drug task force doing narcotics and violence crimes. Back to midnight shift patrol for a little bit. And then currently assigned, I'm down here in the East Wing of the Hall as a detective down here in the East Wing Division. So done a little bit of everything at the department. So.
Well, Jay, of those that you've mentioned, what has been your favorite and why?
Man, I don't know if there's one like particular one of them I could say was my favorites. Really just getting to work with the guys and girls at each place. I've been lucky to be part of an awesome team. Midnight shift when I started out, everybody was 10-8 and getting after it. And I got to work with a bunch of really good guys over there at the DA task force. And down here right now, our East Wing's kind of made up, I guess, to further explain that, of a bevy of folks. We've got our violent crime and our gangs of guys down here, and we've got our narcotics guys, and we've got our detectives down here. And I couldn't ask to work with a better group of people that are getting after it. So that's really just the best part for me, is getting to work with them and watch them do what they do the best and get to help them out and do that too. So.
Well, Rod, we hear that very consistently about your police department. And what is it that makes it so special?
Well, I think it starts with the chief. He's done a really awesome job in thinking about where the needs of the department are right now and where we need to be 5 years from now. And I think it's made an amazing difference for those detectives down there in the follow-up cases, having those additional guys to help out, to do the legwork for them. A lot of times when it would take us, when I was down in CID, it would take us a week or two to even get started on those, and they've got them wrapped up in a day. So it's just made such an impact on the whole department and the community, having the group that we have down there right now.
Well, and Chrissy, I believe in the leadership that I've experienced through the police department, and you're certainly a part of that. But dispatch, sometimes it's you're taking care of the officers, and we see that it's girls down there doing their job. But you also have guys in your dispatch, don't you?
Yes, I've actually got 5 men on our team, and I think the patrol guys probably prefer them because they don't get as easily aggravated. They're real low key. They're a great addition to our group because they do provide that calmness that maybe we might not otherwise have.
Well, sometimes it's easier to because they're out front. Like Sylvia, we see the officers now are male and female, but we don't think about that behind the scenes so much. But I know that you have a question for Jay, Chrissy. Fire that question away.
Jay.
Shoot.
Have you ever, you don't have to tell the story or what did happen, but have you ever done something?
Or you can.
Or you can. Have you ever said something or done something over the radio embarrassing and thought, man, I hope dispatch didn't hear that? And how do you usually react? Do you just act like nothing happened? What goes through your mind when something like that happens?
So we used to have a really, really good dispatcher, and all of y'all are great, but one in particular that there's what's called accidental mic key-ups. It's like when you're riding in your car, your knee can kick open your microphone, and you may be talking on the phone to somebody else or something. And we had a really good dispatcher that would just start grabbing the radio and like yelling at everybody that there was a hot mic, trying to make sure everybody knew that. So one of my East Wing partners the other day was commenting on some top secret information about a surveillance deal that we're actually doing that should not have gone out over the air. And it got leaked out because someone else was keyed up. And luckily it didn't destroy the case or anything. But I know Chrissy was quick to point out, text me and say, yeah, that probably shouldn't have gone out. That's classified information. So you gotta watch it. But me, I've never personally messed up at all over the radio, but I've heard stories of others that have. So
yeah.
Well, so Chrissy, to test that with you, is that an open, like, okay, do we have a Jay story?
The other story I have is to brag on Jay, but no, I think he's probably accurate in saying that I can't think of anything that he's done recently. Maybe his counterparts. We've had some slips on the radio. It happens to the best of us. That the thing with dispatch and patrol is you've got to be on it because you don't know from one second to the next what the situation's going to be. So we'd like to think that our vocabulary is huge and we can think on the fly about things, but there are some times when something happens and all you can do is stare at the radio thinking about what you need to or how you need to respond to something. And the best response is nothing at all every now and then.
Well, Jay, I may be not recalling properly, but I don't think you were in the military, were you?
No, sir.
And Chrissy, you have not been in the military.
No.
But you, Rod, today, Memorial Day, in the military, first of all, thank you for your service. And I'd like to know, as the major and a Navy brig officer, I think, when you served, tell us what this day means to you and kind of help us understand a little bit better your heart.
I get emotional thinking about it. I just want to thank all the military members, their families, friends who have lost loved ones through the wars over the period of time of our nation. And it's such a great sacrifice to all of those and to all of us as a community to lose someone in war. And I'm so thankful that we live in this country, that we have those volunteers willing to step up and take the call, and answer the call. I enjoyed my time in the service, and we as a department, we continue to welcome those veterans and bring those veterans on. And it just means everything to me.
Well, I feel that in your heart. And when somebody is considering the police force as a career, it's really never too late if it's in their heart. I know you were kind of a late bloomer to the force, and it ties back to your naval career. Could you tell us your story on what ultimately helped you decide that you wanted to be a police officer?
Yeah, I really didn't think much about it becoming a police officer. I was in the Navy, and I really thought that I would stay there for 20 years. And while I was in the Navy, I just joined at 18, right out of high school, and left for the service. And while I was home on leave, I had an uncle that was a trooper, and he was shot and severely injured, and thankfully he survived. And I guess that was in the back of my mind that law enforcement probably wasn't something that I would ever pursue after seeing that. But I had the opportunity to work at the brig in the Navy as a corrections officer, and we had an escape, and we hadn't had an escape in forever. Nobody could ever remember anyone escaping from there. And we all got activated to find this person. And the same day, we were able to bring him into custody. And I remember that adrenaline feeling as I ran through those tall weeds to catch him. I thought, I know what I want to do now. And so I served 9 years and got out, and we came back to Shawnee and applied with Shawnee PD.
So Jay, you has it been about 9 years ago for you that you applied?
12 years actually coming up.
Man, it goes by fast. Okay, 12 years ago, you apply, and you kind of got off easy a little bit earlier because I was asking about that same kind of adrenaline. Now, Rod had just explained he was chasing down a prisoner that had gotten away, had a big adrenaline rush. What's been an experience for you that created that kind of adrenaline rush, and how do you deal with that day in and day out? Because I know when I get those adrenaline rushes, it can really wear me out. So how do you deal with that on a daily basis?
Man, well, they're a little further between now that I have a desk job, but when you're out, I mean, foot pursuits, car chases, it's like everything you see on TV. It's as much of an adrenaline rush as you'd think. And buying dope was always one of the biggest adrenaline rushes you can't really show. If I had a chance, I'd bring you down. We'll give you a cool street name like Heavy D or Shag Nasty or something. We'll load up and do it. You can experience for yourself. It's a good time.
Nasty.
But no, I think to deal with it, you just have to. I was always kind of like a adrenaline junkie anyway, a little bit, I guess, a little bit more risk tolerant than most people, and so that kind of played in well when I came into this job. My wife, when I was actually applying, kind of coached me into it, kind of explaining that to me. And I think you just have to find other hobbies and stuff to do outside to kind of normalize your life a little bit. You don't want it to like consume you and be the only thing that you're focused on. So I do a lot of hunting, a lot of playing golf, involved in my church and things like that outside of work that kind of balance out the adrenaline rush and I guess heart attack waiting to happen that kind of comes from doing this job sometimes.
Oh, man. So, Chrissy, Jay actually knows how to play golf. So you need to tell your friend that as well. Hey, he's probably a pretty good golfer. What about you, Chrissy, in that dispatch room? Do you ever have adrenaline moments? I mean, you've said that you have. Can you describe one for
Yes.
us?
The best times that, and probably everybody in there too, that I have dispatching is when they are on a manhunt or a pursuit, because like I've said before, we want to be ahead of the game. We don't want to have them ask us for anything. We want to know what their next step is, and we're constantly searching for them on our maps that we have, trying to track their vehicles. Half the time, in our heads, we have every case solved. Whether it's true or not, we've heard a little bit, and we're going to have it solved before the officer ever gets on scene, because we can make up a good story. But I think when they're active, that's when we're active. I will say, though, I've had the opportunity to dispatch when they've had, in fact, I think Jay put a pretty good drug bust together down south of town, and there's nothing like hearing officers yell and shots being fired on the radio channel to definitely get your attention. And like I said, those guys' voice. You don't have to wait for a badge number or for them to tell you who they are. You know their voice, and you're trying to be ready and check on them while everything else in the world's still going on. But it's fun.
Rod, it sounds like Chrissy likes to get the adrenaline going. I mean, my
Yes.
started, what? Shots fired. Yeah, let's go right to it. Rod, you've worked with Jay now for over 12 years, and I think I sat in the room with you when he went through one of his interviews.
Yeah.
Do you have a
forgotten
question?
about that. Yeah.
Do you have a
I'd forgotten
question
about
for
that.
Corporal Kheen?
Yeah, that group, I remember that group, and I think I was in training at the time, and I was thinking, man, what an awesome group. I really did good, but you just get lucky sometimes. And
You
that was
surround
such a-
yourself with good people. That's the leadership of you, right?
You
there.
are 73. You can't top that.
But I remember one time, Jay was like a track star from OBU, and he was super fast. And I don't know if he's still super fast or not, but He was back then, and I was the midnight shift supervisor, and we were out on this guy, and he came back. Dispatch said he's got warrants, and he recognized that dispatch told us that he had warrants, and we're all standing there together, and he's off to the races, and Jay and I look at each other, and Jay's across the street already, and I'm standing there thinking, how am I going to catch these two? And so luckily the guy fell down, and Jay was on him, and I caught up to him, and I was just kind of laughing because it ended so quickly by the guy falling down. You just get lucky sometimes. But that's one of my memories with Jay on midnights, and we had a bunch of those.
Do you have a question for him?
Yes. What was it like in the DA's task force? Can you share any of those stories where, like an officer coming in, you may want to share some of those experiences? I know you can't go into detail, but what was a normal day like with the DA's task force?
Probably the most normal thing about a day was that there was no normal days, I guess. So we were responsible for Potawatomi and Lincoln County, and there were some other agencies that were assigned over there that had officers, and then the guys that worked for the DA's office. So we would go assist other agencies with any homicides or major shootings or things like that happened within the 23rd district. And then on top of that, also trying to keep a handle on the narcotics and drugs flowing in. And one of the biggest things, or I guess misconceptions maybe in our state, is that drugs are a victimless crime, or don't really have a major effect on a bunch of other people besides the people using them. But the drug trade it's tied so much into all the property crime that we have in the area, into the violent crime. I would say probably 80-85% of the violent crime has some kind of drug nexus that comes back to it. And so just really trying to stay on top of that and stay, if you weren't being reactive and trying to work the homicides and the shootings and stuff, it was trying to be proactive and get on the front end of that, and try and get these dope dealers off the streets, and try and get the drug endangered kids and basically get them out of those houses so they didn't have to grow up in it, and kind of give them a better chance to get away from some of that. So we would run from roll in about 9 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes we'd go till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes 2 or 3 days straight. We had to, just trying to stay on top of everything.
So, Jay, if I was a young man or a young lady and I was thinking, maybe the police force would be a good fit for me, what kind of opportunities, with all the experiences that you've had over the last 12 years, what kind of opportunities for what kind of people are there at our police department?
Honestly, it would be easier to limit the people that I wouldn't recommend apply. If you don't care about victims and you don't care about people, then we don't have any use for you. And if you have the ability in you to quit, if you're going to stop in the middle of the night and I need your help, and you're going to quit or give up, then this isn't for you. But other than that, we can pretty much work with anybody that has a heart that cares about people and wants to do some good in this world. We can teach you how to do this job. We've got some excellent FTOs and people that can train you. We've got administration that cares about you. We've got dispatchers that care about you. And if you've got a heart to come help people, we can take you and put you in a position where you can go help people in a variety of different ways. There's patrol, which goes out, and patrol in and of itself that's like 700 jobs all wrapped into one. You're a lawyer, a social worker, a paramedic sometimes, peacemaker, counselor. You get to fight people and chase people, and I don't know, everything all wrapped up into one. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, that let me just say that was pretty good. You did pretty good, Jay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you top that, Rod?
Like Jay said, and I think Officer Price touched on that the first day as well. There are just so many duties and hats that we have to use every day, and that's probably in dispatch as well. There's just no boring day. You don't know what you're going to be confronted with, and that's why if you want a challenging career, dispatch or as an officer, you're going to be challenged, and it's the perfect place. It's the perfect size community. to realize your true potential. And I'm just so proud of these officers and dispatchers for just stepping up. There's a couple
Chrissy,
of things that we don't have, and I give the chief a hard time about it. We need a horse patrol and a dive team, and we would have everything.
Well, we'd also have the dispatchers to tell you guys what to do, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Chrissy, it sounds like it's a bunch of fun over there, hard work, but even in your room, you guys like to have fun, don't you?
Yes. One thing that I would like to brag about, Jay, I had left Shawnee, finished college, came back to Shawnee, and worked on midnight shift with Jay Kheen and Sergeant Huey and Terry. They were all on shift together. Major Taylor might have been the lieutenant at the time, but one thing that I loved about these guys was there was never a stagnant night. Those three were always out doing something, and they're sitting in the dispatch seat. There are times when I can complain about proactive officers because, like I said, everybody else has something going on, and we get busy with fire and medical just like we get busy with police calls. The phones don't stop ringing just because they're doing something. But in reality, you think about these guys that are proactive, they're preventing crime. When the bars are getting out, they're, making sure that the roads are safe for us to drive home so that I can drive home safe, so that your family can drive home safe. They're making sure that all those crimes, all those people who have opportunities to do crimes aren't. And like I said, I can complain about it and I can be thankful because I know both sides of it. But Jay was one of the best, that I had worked with as far as being proactive and making sure that his area was safe at night. And I really enjoyed working with him and those other two just because I knew what type of night we were going to have. It wasn't going to be dull. It wasn't going to be boring. Whether the phones were ringing or not, they were going to have something for us to do. And those are the best kind of nights on night shift.
Well, Jay, and me as well, in the sense of I see you in the crowd, I smile. That's just how it works, man. You just have that effect, and we appreciate the job that you've done. Thank you for being with us today and sharing your heart, and thank you for the words in helping recruits understand, hey, if you like helping people, this job is for you. Thank you, Jay Kheen.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chrissy and Major. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, about the same time?
Yes.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you
Memorial
very
Day.
much.
Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you. We are City of Five Nations podcast, and what another great opportunity it was to meet another man in blue, Jay Kheen, and what a wonderful soul he is. He had a lot to share, and it's always fun to listen to those stories. And there are so many different ways in which we can help people in the City of Five Nations, and perhaps you were one in the mold of becoming a police officer. Now is the time. You can stop by City Hall, pick up an application, or message Rod, Major Taylor, and he can get you that application. He says it's not too hard to fill out the application, and then the physical exams and physical fitness stuff comes later. But early in June, they're going to start filing through the applications on file. And I don't know if you heard, but Jay said in his class they had 19 different people trying to come through, and there were only 3 spots. And so it's competitive. If you're a competitor, if you like to help people, who knows? The City of Five Nations needs you on the police department. Again, thank you for tuning in and watching this series, our Fulfill Your Dream series with the Shawnee Police Department. Because here in the City of Five Nations, together we are building community one season at a time. We hope to see everybody again tomorrow.